Here's a question you will almost certainly face in an AWS architect or developer interview. How do you secure an S3 bucket, and what access control methods are available? The short answer is this. You secure S3 buckets using a combination of bucket policies, IAM policies, and in some cases access control lists. Bucket policies are resource-based and apply directly to the bucket. IAM policies are identity-based and apply to users, groups, or roles. And ACLs are a legacy mechanism for object-level control, but AWS recommends using them only when absolutely necessary. The best practice is to block all public access by default and then grant access explicitly as required. Now let's expand on this. Bucket policies are JSON documents that let you define who can access your bucket and what actions they can perform. They are powerful because you can add conditions, such as allowing access only from a certain IP range, or only during business hours. For example, a financial institution may allow analysts to access reporting data in S3, but only if the request comes from the company's corporate network. That's enforced with a bucket policy. IAM policies are identity and role-based. They follow the principle of least privilege, meaning you only grant exactly what is needed. You can attach these policies to users, groups, or roles, and they integrate with the rest of AWS IAM. For example, in an e-commerce company, the application role used by the website might have IAM permissions to read product images from a bucket, while a data engineering team role might have permissions to write logs or analytics results into another bucket. Access control lists are the oldest mechanism. They allow object-level permissions but are limited in functionality. Today, they are mostly used for edge cases, such as granting cross-account access where bucket policies are not sufficient. For instance, a media company might use an ACL to allow a third-party vendor to drop content into a shared bucket without giving them broader access. But in general, AWS recommends avoiding ACLs and using bucket or IAM policies instead. Let's consider real-world scenarios. In healthcare, S3 often stores sensitive patient records. You would absolutely block public access, enable server-side encryption, and enforce IAM policies so that only authorized healthcare applications can access data. You might also add conditions requiring multi-factor authentication for administrative users. In media and entertainment, companies often want to share content publicly. For example, streaming video trailers hosted on S3 might be accessed by millions of users through CloudFront. In that case, you would make the bucket private and only allow access via a CloudFront origin access identity. That way, the bucket is never public, but content is still distributed globally. In government or defense scenarios, data sovereignty and strict auditing are required. You would secure the S3 bucket with IAM policies, enforce encryption in transit with TLS, and integrate with AWS CloudTrail to log every access request for compliance. Now let's talk about common mistakes and challenges. The number one mistake is leaving a bucket publicly accessible by accident. This has caused many high-profile data leaks. The solution is to always enable block public access at the account and bucket level, then explicitly allow only what you need. Another challenge is managing complex policies. Large organizations often have overlapping IAM and bucket policies, which can cause unexpected results. The fix is to regularly audit your permissions with AWS IAM Access Analyzer and run security scans with AWS Trusted Advisor. Another issue is credential misuse. If developers hardcode IAM keys into applications, those keys might be leaked. The correct approach is to use IAM roles and temporary credentials from AWS STS, especially for workloads running on EC2, ECS, or Lambda. There are also performance-related challenges. If too many applications or accounts have direct access to a bucket, managing permissions becomes messy. In those cases, you can create an access pattern through an API gateway or a service like AWS Data Exchange instead of direct bucket access. Alternatives and enhancements include using AWS organizations and service control policies to enforce rules across accounts, or S3 access points for managing shared datasets with different access needs. You can also combine S3 with KMS for encryption and with MACI for detecting sensitive data automatically. In an interview, expect follow-up questions like these. How would you make an S3 bucket available publicly but still secure? The best answer is, never make the bucket public directly. Instead, use CloudFront with an origin access identity, and add security controls like signed URLs or signed cookies. Another question could be, how do you enforce compliance for sensitive S3 data? The answer would be, use encryption at rest and in transit, enforce bucket policies with conditions, and enable CloudTrail and config to continuously monitor. To recap, bucket policies give you resource-based controls. IAM policies give you identity-based controls. ACLs are legacy and should be avoided unless absolutely necessary. Always start with block all public access, then explicitly grant only what is needed. Real-world clients expect you not only to know the mechanisms, but to explain how to apply them for industries like healthcare, media, or government.